All right, so we're going to continue on the notes starting from error handling. Error handling. So if I call that error handling.html. So in programming generally, error is part of the game. Uh, Error is part of the game. So you often see that sometimes you run into bugs. Sometimes bugs can take you, some hours or minutes to fix.
Recording in progress.
All right. Beyond the bugs that you face at development level, there are a couple of other bugs that you ship with your application to the production app. So sometimes maybe when you don't do proper validation, sometimes when things are not handled properly, errors occur. So when errors occur, sometimes users do not know what is happening. Maybe there's no internet and you are not communicating this to the user. Maybe there is an error somewhere and nothing is just working. You just have to go to console to know what is happening. So we want to see how we can handle the error properly and how we can communicate same appropriately to users so they know what is going on. For instance, if their internet is not working, we want to be able to tell them that, hey, your internet, so rather than you refreshing the system and saying the system doesn't work, maybe we want to be able to tell you that, guy, go and check your internet connectivity, your internet is not connected, or maybe one or two things is happening that it's not making it work the way it should. Pretty much what we're talking about is handling error the way it should and communicating succinctly that to the user so that they are carried along what is going on. Right? So it's very straightforward. It's nothing special about it. So I will just do one. So for instance, let's say I still want to use this. So I do this. All right. So assuming we have a, so let's say I have this. Guys, please, can you hear me?
You can hear you, sir.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, so assuming we have this script written like this, where I say that so assuming we have so let's say we have an input box and the ID of that guy is, say, age, and we just age, and then let's say we have a placeholder, enter your age, something like this, and then maybe we just put on change get age. All right, so we put on change get age. As soon as the person enters the age and the value changed, we get the age right in there. So assuming I am writing a function like this and I say get age, and this function goes thus. Now in the get age, I just say, let's say I alert hooray, just to show that works. So nothing much, just input form and then writing a function get age on unchanged. So if we run this guy here, opening that with live server, okay, so let me dispose the server. I don't know where that is. Okay, now so I enter H now and I put 66. So on change, this guy say hooray. Okay, it means that everything I've written on the screen so far works. Okay, but now let me go in here and say alert age. So by writing alert age, I know that it's going to, of course, throw an error because this age is not defined. It hasn't been defined, and I just do an alert of it. So let's say I wrote this by omission. I forgot to declare that age. Maybe in my mind I thought I had declared it, and then I'm not calling a variable that is not declared. This is pretty much an error. This is pretty much an error. So, but rather than every other thing to still work the way they should, this guy will prevent everything else from working. You know, here we have this guy here. So if you look here, if you look again, if you put an age, say 22, you have alert age. Do we have any age declared anywhere? Yes. So this guy is not throwing error as you should, because it's seeing this guy, this ID, this age here is what is being called here. Assuming we use something that is not on screen, it's not declared as any ID anywhere, and it's not anywhere. Let's say I use ages for instance here. You know, if this guy is not there, everything works normally. If I do this, I put 22, I saw hooray, 22. I saw hooray, something like that. But then if I introduce an error to this screen now, which is by, you know, referencing something that is not has not been declared, I get to have an error. I have an error instead. So if we have 22 now, we can see that that doesn't work again. But if you're not a developer, you won't know that it has thrown an error in the console. So what you saw was that it was working before, but now it stopped working. So as a developer, if you are still developing, you go and inspect the console and check what the error is saying. But what we are saying is that why won't you communicate that same error to the screen instead of having to go to the console to know what is going on if an error has occurred? This is one layer of that error handling, being able to communicate the error that has just occurred to the user of your application so they know what is going on. So this can be a bug. In this case, it's a bug because it's you that is trying to call a variable that doesn't exist. It may not be a bug. It could be maybe the user is not providing the right what your application is expecting, and that introduces an error into your system. In any case, it's still a bug at some level. So you want to be able to, you know, handle that appropriately and ensure that your system is, nobody breaks your system. You know, certain things can break. Like this, we say this system is broken. Right now, the system is broken because an error is introduced. So proper error handling can stand your system out. And I can tell you, in fact, sometimes even, you know, experienced developer will develop application, and because of just little thing like this, people will say it's not working. Meanwhile, it's just proper error handling. Something is happening and we are not telling them what is happening, and people would say just take it as it's not working. So we have to take that very serious. Because the JavaScript is also very loose, and it allows you to do certain things some ways, so you can have issues handling error. So this is the premise of our conversation this morning, to be able to handle the error properly, such that we everybody is carried along at all time. We know what is going on. So from now going forward, we don't want to be going to the console or wherever to know what is going on. We want to be able to know. We want to be able to know the error right on the screen, like that. So to do that, we have a number of ways to check that what is happening. And so you can see this error here. If you check that error, you will see that you have the error is telling you the type of error that has just happened. If you check that error, you will notice that you got. Can you guys still hear me, please? You see
yes,
that
sir.
you have reference
We
error.
can hear you, sir.
You have reference error. This is a reference error because we are referring to something that hasn't been declared. We are referring to something that hasn't been declared, so we got that reference error. So it's important that we first of all highlight the type of errors, at least the common type of errors that we have, and then we'll now see how we can, properly handle such error and display them on the screen. Okay, so now that will take me to just telling you a bit about the type of the various, at least the common type of errors that we have. Okay, so I'll start from that first one, which is what you have here. The errors in JS, the various type of errors. You have that reference error, and I know that everyone should be able to explain what that is. Reference error is a Pascal case since the class. Error itself, this belongs under the error class. All this error here belongs under error class. Error like this. Error is a class. So you also can throw an error to the user. You will see it as we move along. So this reference error is a child. Please, I don't know if it's from my side. I'm hearing one noise. Is it from me?
No, sir, it's not from you. Someone unmuted.
Okay.
I think it's
okay. So we have this reference error here where we is it, like I said, is a child of is a type of error, is a subclass of error function in itself. Itself is also a class. So, and it's written as reference error. If you want to instantiate it, you can have reference error like this. So this is a type of error which is talking to you, referencing what is not declared. Right? And there is popular, of course, syntax error. Syntax error is common. Syntax error. So syntax error has to do with you not getting syntax right. That is error of violation. For every programming language, there's a rule of engagement. And that rule of engagement is what we call syntax. That is the rule that guides that language. So for everything, let's say if statement, while statement, and all of this, there's a way you write it. Now, so if you do not follow the standard way of writing any of the, the code blocks or any of the blocks of any programming, we said you have committed a syntax error. So it means that you didn't write it properly. That's not even a valid code. It's not even a valid code. For instance, if I'm trying to write something here and let's say this guy here, I just omit certain things I just write, something that is not right. That will be tagged as a syntax error. So when you have incorrect statement, something like that, put simply. It's just like if you liken this in English language, if you write a statement without putting a period at the end, that is a syntax error, because in English language, must every statement must end with a period, with a dot. So if you write yours without a dot at the end, even though it's a common error, it's a syntax error. So if you are writing a variable, we have rules of naming variables. If you don't follow any of those rules, you have syntax error. That's a syntax error. All right. So you equally have type error. Though JavaScript is a loosely typed programming language, and it tries to do type conversion by itself. So, but by the time you start using a strict method in your program, which we will start using in a bit, your JavaScript, you see, it begins to throw up, it become a bit stricter, and it begins to throw some sort of error that it won't normally throw up. So type error is if you are trying to reference a type in a way that it should not be referenced. Maybe you're trying to reference a string in a way that a number should be referenced. So you see a type error, so you may want to catch that kind of error and handle it appropriately. And you usually have a couple of other errors, a lot of them. Say URL error. I hope we know what URI is. So of course we should. We have been working with URL, so you know what uniform resource locator is. So, and here we are talking about the so if you have a resource locator or a resource indicator that is not properly declared, or if there's an error along that line, so you have a URI error. And all of these ones here, just like I've written this, you can have this guy as syntax error. I think I got syntax. I hope I have that syntax error. So if you want to instantiate, if you want to tell someone, you can write that, instantiate a new class, and the syntax error, you want to throw it that you have committed a syntax error, and package the English properly, rather than working with the English that is given by default. You want to be able to type in your own, overwrite the defaults, this thing. So you can have that kind of error. So there are all other that type of errors, like range error, eval error, and all of that. Range error is when you specify something out of range. Maybe you're expecting certain type of range, let's say from 20 to 100, and someone provide something outside that. You want to be able to throw range error. Or in JavaScript normally there is a save number. Save number is the range of numbers that are saved to compute with. Outside that number, it's not saved to do computation outside that save range. So if someone puts any number, a bogus number that is outside the range of saved numbers that you can compute with, you may want to throw an error. But that's a very big number. But in your own programming, maybe let's say you have certain range that you expect. For instance, you have certain age range or something like that. So you want to throw age error, range error. So you may want to throw that kind of error as well. So let me put it in here. So you can have range error. So just to name a few type of errors, you can always get all these things from the error class. So you see the various type of errors that are available. Now, so let's see how we can, how this works. For instance, this error that we just got, and how we can, handle it such that this guy doesn't stop our program from working. So you can see what it has done successfully is stop our program from working, and beyond that, user doesn't even know what is going on. Except you're a developer where you have to go to console and say that, okay, error is thrown, and then maybe we want to report those errors. Okay, so for us to be able to catch an error properly, we'll use a very simple distance. I know some of you know it. We'll use a very simple syntax called try catch. Try catch. Try catch. So for us to catch an error properly, we use try catch. Try catch syntax is what we use to, catch an error that has occurred. So we try a code block. If there's an error, then we catch that error. So when we catch that error, we can do whatever we like with the error that has been caught. Either we want to display it to the user or we want to do something with it. And it's also very good. One of the reasons you also want to handle error properly is that error is a way that hackers, if hackers come to your websites, they are trying to look at your error message because they can exploit you with your error message, because your error message can expose you, can expose a couple of things that you are not doing properly, can expose a couple of things about your implementations. So advanced hackers, tends to go, it's a point of exploitation that people look out for. Try to check what the error messages are saying, so you can know how to, if you want to hit them from there. Please guys, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
We
Okay.
can hear you, sir.
So what we are saying here is, so try catch, or try catch finally is a way of handling an error here. So let's say that, let me take this off. Here, we want to say try, this is syntax for it, try. We want to try this block here. And then we want to catch the error that ensued after it. So this error here, this E here, signifies the error that just occurred. So in this block here, you can catch the error. So when you use the try catch, it means that the error does not prevent the whole system from working. Imagine, because getH doesn't work, every other thing, let's say you have a whole lot of other codes here that are JavaScript, all of them won't work either. So because that is not working, should not prevent other stuff that don't have problem from working. So try catch ensures that we try this block. If it doesn't work, this exception should be caught. And developers also use this, abuse this try catch, but let me take it slowly so that you get what I'm saying. Now, so what we are trying to do is that we want to try this code block. We want to try this code block. If an error occurs, it will be caught here within this block here. If an error occurs, we can want to say alert, there is an error. You say alert, there is an error. So you see that this time around, okay, this guy will still go ahead and work, because what you did before is you put everything together, and because that console.log edges didn't work, this guy also didn't work. So if we go ahead, again. Now, so if you do this and you say 22, so you see there's an error. This is the error message that you put in there, and then you have the URI, and then there's no error in the console again, because you have handled the error. In this program estimation, it sees as this error has been handled because you probably put it in a try catch block. So you are telling it there's an error, but of course you are not telling the person what kind of error it is. Okay, so if you want to tell the person the kind of error it is, pretty much like what you got in the distance, so you may want to put in this E. So let's say you say console.log, there's an error, or you want to display somewhere. And so let's say you have somewhere here. So error. So error dot, you can have error dot message, which is the message, but you want to see what the error contains entirely. Of course, that's an object. So there's an error, and you can see it's a reference error. Ages is not defined. So there's an error, reference error. Ages is not defined. So this is what you have done here, even though you shouldn't be alerting stuff like this. Of course, if you want to handle it with alerts, you can use maybe a proper alert system, like when you sweet alert and all of those. But of course, this is just a way of displaying the error message to the user. Guys, please, I don't know if anybody is confused at this point before we move forward.
We are following, sir.
We are following, sir.
Okay. All right. So what you have done here is you've been able to write your own English here. This can be your own English, and this is the error that's just that you have just caught here. But let's say you want to specifically undo the type of error. Let's say you want to handle reference error different from how because this one here is general for all type of errors. Whether it is reference, whether it's syntax, the guy will just tell you the kind of error it is and all of those things like that. You may want to write a new type of handler that handles different type of errors differently. So that way you may want to check the type of error it is before you know what to do with that type, with that error. You want to handle the type of error it is so that you know how to handle that. Okay, so to do that is very simple. You just check the instance of the error. You just check the instance of the error, and then how do I call it, handle that appropriately. Please, are we together?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So assuming I want to handle each of the error differently. All right, so I have that error like that. So you just come here, check if it's a reference error. If it's a reference error, and handle appropriately. All right, so what you do there is so you just use instance of if this error is a type of, that's what you're saying. We're used to using type of for our objects. So when you say instance of, you're trying to check if it's an instance of a type of error class. So if this is an instance of reference error, reference error, I hope I wrote that very well. So you can handle reference error like this. Else you can check, maybe if it's a syntax error, handle it like this. If it is this type of error, handle it like that. So that way you are not handling all sort of errors the same way. So let's say you just say maybe you change it into an else statement or else if statement, and you go one more time and check if this guy is let's say if this guy is a syntax error, or let's say is an eval error. Okay, you handle that, you go again, else if it's another type of error. So I did not put eval here. Like I told you, there are other type of error. So if you have eval error, that's an error that occurs from evaluation. And evaluation should be used, with a lot of caution when you're using JavaScript, and in fact it's discouraged. That's why it didn't even, this thing is evaluation, because that gives anyone that is going to exploit your code more power. This eval, just it makes things executable with this eval that you have here. So if you have evaluation error, you want to check for it, and you want to check for range error. So pretty much I don't have to write everything. You can handle any type of error by mentioning if it is instance of this error, handle it differently, rather than so it's a choice, rather than having a global way, just like the first one we did. This one we want to, so this one here, you say this is alert, or you may want to display it on the DOM. Let's say you have here, you created a div, and then you have an error, you call that place error, and you style it appropriately so it displays the error message. You may want to pass in your error there, or you may want to just simply alert it. So you can say this is a reference error, just to show that we know that we can come here and handle that error appropriately. So this is a reference error. You can put, do whatever it is you want with it, without your reference error. If it is an evaluation error, do whatever you want to do with the evaluations, and then display the error appropriately as well. So you can have that, and then maybe else all type of other error, you want to have them like that. So it is a reference error, you can have something like that. So if you look at your implementation, you see that we have, this is a reference. I didn't write it properly. This is a reference error. I can handle you. So just put your handler in there like that. So another person would come in here and take all of this out and call it error handler, so that it can be used, it can be reused. So you just write it once, error handler. So somebody will just come there and write something like this and put this thing like that, so that when you need it again in another function, you don't have to repeat yourself. In the earlier period of our engagement with JavaScript, we did something that we call JavaScript best practices. In that engagement, in the document that was shared with you, you read a couple of things about clean codes and all of those things like that. But we'll begin to step that forward a bit more. So there's something that we call dry, a principle in programming called dry. Dry means do not repeat yourself. So do not write two things twice. So if you're going to write it twice, you find a way to, envelope it, wrap it up in a function so that it can be called a number of ways you want it. So the principle of dry means that if I have get age, if I have another function that I have to handle the error, I don't have to go and be writing if this thing's inside the error. So all I need to do is just call this error handler for all the places that I need to handle the error, and the guy handles the error. Of course, I have to pass in the error that is getting from here. So this guy there has to be a parameter. Of course, this guy gets it as an argument. So that error works, because even this one, if you put it without that, this is your error handler is an error in itself, because this guy will not be defined. And if you want to catch your error properly, it's best that you then begin to use what we call use strict. So when you use strict here, JavaScript becomes a bit more stricter, and it treats you as if you have this guy is now is no longer a baby that he used to be. So if you misbehave, I can tell you that, guy, you are now misbehaving. You are not supposed to use something that you have not declared. You are not supposed to do or stuff like that. So, this becomes your code becomes a bit stricter. Your JavaScript becomes a bit stricter. Please, if I'm confusing you, let me know if I'm not aligning the thought process very well. Is anyone here who is confused?
Please, do you use strict, sir?
Yes.
Could you please go again?
Yes.
Please help us
So
provide again.
okay, so JavaScript is not strict. It's not a strict language, even though it throws error earlier about that is because we have gone too far. We have gone too far. That's why it throws an error. So if he try to handles a couple of things by itself, if by itself, maybe the error you committed is maybe you are trying to call chioma and then you say chiom, and JavaScript can decipher it and see and try to know that what you were trying to do is chioma, what you were trying to say is chioma. And JavaScript does that a lot. Try to complement you, do automatic type conversions and all of those things like that. So, but that is using the loosely type of JavaScript as it's given. Now, the moment you want to handle more error properly, you want JavaScript to be a bit strict with you, so that it doesn't forgive. If you want to write chioma and you say chiom, JavaScript does not automatically evaluate chiom to chioma. It tells you that it's chiom that you have written, so it calls your attention to it. You are going to use strict, so JavaScript becomes a bit stricter. A bit strict, if there is that, a bit strict to your use of JavaScript syntax, expressions, and implementations. So just simply using strict, it means that you are telling JavaScript, raise the level a bit. That's all it needs. Raise the level a bit, and then the police is no longer the usual police. It's now a mobile police. It's not so forgiving. It calls you into order a couple of times. Each time you make reckless mistakes, JavaScript will be calling into an order. For instance, normally we can come here and be saying x equals to, let's say we say x is equals to 45, right? So if we say x equals to 45, look at what happened here. Look at what is going to happen there. So you see an error. You see uncaught reference error. X is not defined. Normally, this is not an error in JavaScript. This is not an error. If I'm not using use strict, it will not throw this error. If I'm not using use strict, it's not going to throw this error. JavaScript will automatically treat it as a global variable. That's how JavaScript will have treated it. So look at it now. I've commented out this use strict, and I'm just using x equals to 45. Let's see if it retains the error. So if you have this now, you say 22, you see everything works properly. No error. No error is thrown because JavaScript automatically handles this. But I don't want to write that kind of useless code. I want to write proper code. You saying use strict, it means that JavaScript is now seeing me as no longer that beginner that I used to be, and then it should call me to order. Now, when I say use strict now, it calls me to order and says that, guy, you should use a let statement here, or you should use a const, or use var. At least you should use one keyword. You don't just write that. That is what JavaScript is telling me. So the moment I do that, and I refresh this guy here, you see that it's now calling me to an error. Uncaught reference error, S is not defined, because here it sees it as this thing. So if I use a let statement, then it allows it to slide. Everything works normally. This is the essence of use strict. I hope you guys get it.
Yes, we do. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So now when you use restricts, and then you have to then write your error handler properly. You know, my error handler is still working, and I can use it in multiple functions, not just this singular function. Okay, so now this is you handling the error that, you know, natively being generated. You can also generate your own error. For instance, if we are expecting a number from this guy, we are expecting someone to type in a number, but what is being typed in is not a number. All right, so we, rather than saying that please type in the proper number, we want to throw an exception so that exception can be caught somewhere else. We want to throw an exception, and that exception will be caught somewhere else. So we want to say that, look at it, let's say we say ValidateH. Okay, so let's say I write a function, I call it ValidateH. So if I write a function called ValidateH, and this ValidateH is basically just getting the h and checking if it is a number. If it is not a number, if h is not a number, so I say if this age here is not a number, then now what I want to do is to throw an error, because this function is not called directly, so I don't want to do alert. I don't want to do an alert. I want to throw an error, so that error can be something that can be caught by a try catch. So I'm going to throw this one here. I will throw new error. So here I can put my error message properly. Throw new error. You know, so this is a way of throwing an error within your function. So rather than just echoing that, so this error can be handled in another function that calls this function. Can be handled in another function that calls this. So I said here invalid age or something like that. All right, so this one here, I'm the one throwing this error. So if there's any try catch block that calls this guy, this is the error message that will be thrown. This is what they will be catching. Okay, so here I say if this is this, throw that error, and then I can return it. Return means stop executing, don't go further. So if I do this now, I want to check what the person enters. Okay, so here I say validate age. Now, so our error handler here, so let's say here alert the error that is caught. Or let's say I just because it's also a referenced error. So let's say we have this guy here. Now, so here I come here and I put shams. So you see the error that you got here is error invalid age. invalid H because you just throw that type of error. You throw general error. You are not specific and say that. So, but you may say you want to be specific. You may throw this guy type of error. Instead of throwing this, you can throw type error. You can throw type error and put these things here: invalid type, expected type is equal to something like that. Now, but new error works for all type of error. You are the one now cooking this error so that someone else can catch it and they will see the English that you've written in there. So you have that. I'm also being very careful. I don't want us to, because I know that some of you complain that. So we have type error now, invalid H. This is the error that you throw and that is being caught. The error that is being thrown, that you throw, then is being caught. So what have we learned? We've learned a bit of the type of errors. Now we saw how we can use the try catch to catch the common errors. We saw how we can throw our own errors. We saw how we can write our function to undo, common type of error. So all these ones I put as empty. You can put any way. Maybe it's true alert, or you want to put that error message inside here. Or you can also put the cause of the error. It's because the error that you saw here, it's an object. So an error takes a couple of things. So let's say you console log it. If you console log that error, you would see that it has message, it has stack, it has cause, something like that. So you may want to pass in, different things inside that. So of course you'll see a PDF. A PDF would accompany this video as soon as it's exported. Of course you get your video immediately, and the exported version of these things will come in a bit. I'm sure Mr. Shams will also give us this one that we're having now. So so we can go through, and please you use it. The programming is by using. Sometimes things looks complicated. Once you get your hands dirty, you start writing it, you see that it's quite simpler than these things. Programming becomes more complex when you overthink it, when you're thinking about it rather than writing it. When you think about it so much, it becomes complex. The complexity is multiplied. But the moment you start writing code, you start following stuff, everything will just become simpler. So I will encourage you to use it to undo a couple of errors that in your programs, a couple of things that we've done in the past. So something like that, because we're going to build up from here. The asynchronous callback, all the things that we're going to be using, we'll be using this error handling approach. So if you don't get it, things will just get complicated. We get that, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any question do you want me to answer, or anything that you want me to clarify?
Yes, I have a question, sir.
Okay, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you for the class. My question is, now that we've linked error handling now, does it now imply that for every functionality we write in our project, we must always consider error handling for each function?
Yes.
Or there's just basically certain aspect of
you should. Maybe I should allow you to learn, but you should not be complacent. You should handle for every function that you write. Especially if it's an output function, you would handle the error. For instance, you see this is the validate. I don't have to handle any error here because this guy is a generator. This guy is a generator. So this guy here, it's a function that is a consumer because it consumes what is being generated here. So this guy is trying to be safe because this guy is the one that is facing the client. Is the guy that is communicating the client. So I have to handle the error here. Within the generator also, you may want to handle certain type of error so that you want to ensure that things are not. But try catch is not something that you also want to overuse and just litter your code everywhere. It has a way of littering code. So you find a way. Again, it comes to bear again what I mentioned earlier. Dry concept. Do not repeat yourself. You don't want to repeat what yourself, and that's why we learned function. You know how you can put stuff in code block, so those guys can be called. So since they are similar, we can put them together, stuff like that. But to answer your question straight, you undo exception, or errors, in all your implementation. But as you move along, but if you are doing API calls, there's something that we call interceptor. So interceptors, what that does for you is that you don't have to undo for all API calls. You can handle the error in a central place, and all error, any error that occurs, it will just be handled in that block. You don't have to worry that block that you've written that guy home. But before then, we learn how to any implementation you write, because there's a possibility that the error can come from anywhere, so you undo it. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Kenny, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, thank you, sir. I have a question. My question goes like this. Please, the code above, that is where you call the error handler, or where you call the validate error. That is above. Yes, this code here, where you alert query at line 44. So my question is like this: when you, for instance, now maybe when we have error, and the code already detect the error and catch the error maybe at line 39. Is there any way that you can just like break the code there so that the other lines of the code will not execute? Because now after it validates and it catches error at number 39, it still like executes the code at number 43.
Okay, good question, Arun. So if you see what I mentioned, one of the reasons you're trying to catch this thing is that depending on sometimes what you are having here affects this one. What you're having here affects this one. Sometimes it doesn't. Let me give you a typical example. The typical example is you sign up in an application, maybe in a third party, on a third party application. You sign up. Now, part of the requirement is that maybe after signing up, they've coded it that it should send you an email just to welcome you. They should send you an email and say welcome. That email, let's say it doesn't have any significance, it's not for activation, it's just to say you welcome. Now, for whatever reason, let's say that email server is down, or that email did not go through, and that throws an exception. Meanwhile, your registration is successful. The code at the top is run, and the registration is successful. Should we say that the entire registration is not successful because the email did not deliver? Or we should take that registration as a valid registration, the email server, whatever it is that's happening with it, we can resolve? That is the question. That is the question that you may want to answer. That's why I'm saying that now sometimes what happens here is related to what happens here. So if you put something like, in that instance, how some developers want to handle it, like you have your registration block handled in a try catch, another email sender maybe handled in another try catch. So they are independent of the other. So if registration is valid and the other guy is just to send you a welcome message, if it doesn't go through for whatever reason, it should not invalidate your registration. So you can have that kind of implementation. Or you can want to implement that if the image didn't go through, then the entire registration is not successful. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. But one thing that the try catch gives you is it gives you separation of concern. That this guy here, its execution does not depend on this execution. But if both of them work together, then this guy here would be inside here. So if this guy here is inside here, if any of this guy fails, none of these will execute. If anything in this try here, if if anything there does not execute, if there's an error there, it will not execute. It will come into an error. But if they are independent, like you want to undo this guy separate, then this guy comes here, then you put it outside here. This is what you have written. So what you are saying is that they try this guy. If there's an error, throw this error, continue the execution. You understand? We are saying that because a part
Yes,
of
I
our
do.
because a part of our program does not work, does not mean that everything doesn't work. That's what we are saying here.
Yes, sir.
You get
Thank
you
you,
get
sir.
you get
I
it,
get.
right?
Yes, I get it. Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Kenny. I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. Can you throw more light on the evaluation error, on how it differs with the type error in terms of user input? And also, the function of getAge is what is carrying the try-catch error handler. Can we have a separate function? Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you. Your last part is what I'm trying to get. Go ahead.
Okay. Function of getAge is what is carrying the try-catch error handler. Can we have a separate function that catches all the errors on our page, or we need to write this separately?
Like, can we have a function that catches all error on
On a particular JavaScript page? Because this one is the function of getAge that is having only this try-catch error handler.
Okay, can we have a central error that catches? Is that what you're saying? A central error handler that catches all functions,
Yes, sir.
all functions that you have
Yes, sir.
on your
Yes, sir.
on your page. Yeah.
Yes,
So
sir.
if you get the explanation I gave, you would understand that I said you can have a central error handler. Depending on your code structure, you can have a central error handler that watches for error, and in fact we do that at the back end a lot. Watches out of error, and then because there's a middleware, you write it as a middleware. Some of you don't get it twisted. It's the question that is making me answer that way, but I'll try to break it down as much as possible. So there's something that we call middleware, which as the name implies, is a middleman between a request and response. Is a middle guy between the request and response. So let's say what you are saying is that Victor or someone just asked me, you go to a restaurant, okay? You go to a restaurant and then you request for rice. So you're making the request, right? So when you request for rice, there's these guys who takes your order, and then he is not the one that will prepare the food. He just take your order and then pass your order information to the people who prepares it at the back end. So maybe you don't get to see those people. They just go inside and tell them that, okay, this guy said he wants rice. So they now those guys will now tell the middleman guy that, okay, yes, rice is available. Tell the guy that he should wait for 5 minutes, or tell him that he should wait for 15 minutes. So the guy comes back again and tells that guy. So that's middle guy here in programming, or in technical terms we call him the middleware. The middleware coordinates between the request and response. But basically between back end and front end. Now, so how we handle that with the middleware is very simple, because if any error happens from the client from the back end, basically, the guy can know where the error is, and then we can centralize the errors and then get out from the back end perspective. From the front end perspective, we can also have a central error, but that right now you are not making an API call, so everything just happens within the front end. All these things we are writing here, all these function age here, it's just a play functions that we are writing in here, and that becomes a bit clumsy if they want to handle the error centrally. But if you're making an API call, so we have several API calls being made here and there like that, so you can handle that through an interceptor, because you have a central path where all of them pass through. Since you know where all of them are passing through, you can put a gate in there and then try to check for error. Each time they're coming, they pass through to the same gate, so you can, it's easy at that end to quickly check an error and then propagate that error in a central place without having to write several error handler here and there. But beyond that, right, now the kind of structures that we've got on this screen, where you have let's say get age, maybe you have get another something. So if you want to undo the error together, then you are going to have to write a try catch for all of them. Then you put all of them within that block. So instead of doing the try catch of this guy, let's say you have that this guy, in itself, you just have it written. And then any other thing you have them written, then you want to write the global functions, and then you put all of them in one single try catch. If you do that, you would conveniently negate the essence of try catch. What we are saying is that because if function A does not work, function B won't work. All of them are executed together. You understand? So, but like I said, depending on your code structures and what you're trying to do, it's possible that you can have a central error handling in some instances. In some instances, it is also possible, but you are going to be doing what you shouldn't be doing. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. That is one of your questions. You asked a number of questions. Let's ensure that is handled first before we move on to another. That's
Yes, sir, I understand.
You understand that?
I understand.
Can you remind me the other question that you asked? I'm also very personal.
Okay.
So, yes.
The other question was, what's the difference between the type error and the evaluation error?
Okay, so evaluation error is, like I said, eval is something that is an error that occurs as a result of eval. This guy here occurs as a result of eval when you have eval, and I said that should be used with care. You have to be very careful when you use it, because here anything can pretty much evaluate. So if, for instance, you have a function called a script called eval, eval, so you can hear me.
We can hear you, sir.
Can hear you, sir.
Can hear you.
Okay, so let's say we have eval, and then we have 4 plus 4. This guy evaluates anything that you put in here. Anything that you put in here, it evaluates it. But if anything that you put in here is wrong, this evaluates into an eval error. If whatever you put in here is wrong, it may be due to type error, it could be reference error, it could be whatever it is that you put in here that you're trying to evaluate. It will evaluate into an eval error if what you have here is wrong. So that such error will be caught with an eval error. If whatever you put here is inappropriate, is wrong, and then you're trying, so you have, let's say you're trying to say 4 plus, and then you're not putting what you're supposed to put. This is an error. This is really a syntax error because it's not correct. It is a syntax error. And because I have ESLint, it doesn't even allow me to go ahead and put it in there. But let's say you put something that is not right in here. This is a reference error. This while is not defined. So first you have one error level, and second error level of that eval evaluate to. That's an eval error. You understand? So error as a result of using eval expression is what we call the eval error. Error that occurs as a result of using improper type. When you're supposed to use a string, you're using a number. When you're supposed to use a string, you're using a bool. That is a type error. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, guys. Thank you very much. Please keep the question coming. The WhatsApp channels is open. I know that a couple of you have sent me. Musa, sorry. Well done for the good work. You shared the work that you've done for me. To me rather. I have not checked. Forgive me about that. I will check. Please do not get discouraged. Keep on working. I'll check as much as soon as I have the meaning to check it. But you can continue to build on. Musa, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me, please?
Yes, sir, we can.
Can hear you, sir.
Oh, okay. So Nafisa was asking, how can you explain how attackers can use the error message to hack a code? If I miss the explanation, can somebody explain that before we go? How attackers can, I think I mentioned it, but if you understand that part, if can anybody try to answer that question?
Can I go ahead, sir?
Go ahead, please.
Okay, so when hackers come to your website and they notice some of the errors that your code is showing, they try to exploit that particular part of code, because when they come at first, they don't have a direct approach on how best to attack your page. So they first of all look for the errors first. When they find an error, let's say, for instance, like Mr. Kenny explained, the evaluation error or something else, they might try to inject code through that means
Thank you very
to
much.
stop that error and then possibly gain access to more things on your page.
Thank you, Najib.
That's how I understand it.
Thank you. You hit the nail on the head, right? Especially when you use the eval. For instance, let's say you misuse, God catch you, then you misuse the eval, and you guys say, this guy has eval error, and if this guy has evaluation on this. So that's a very simple way to get into your code, because anything you put into eval will execute. Of course, so. And the way JavaScript works is that if you did not undo that error, it will tell the user on what line that thing is. So the guy doesn't even have to struggle to look for where it is. It tells you which file has it, on what line it is. So the guy just goes straight in there, and then you try to clone and stuff like that, and then just depending on the experience of the attacker too. But it just gives your app a way for a cheap hack. Error can give you away. You see error like someone, if I'm trying to look for your vulnerability, if I'm trying to get into you, what I try to check out for is for your weakness. This is just take it away from code, take it to the normal day-to-day activity. If someone is trying to get you, they try to check for your weakness. And weakness is the error exposes the weakness of your web page or your application. So, and person can easily just exploit it. Like some of you, your weakness is money. Some of you, your weakness is, what your weakness is. So once people know that, they can get to you with, that your vulnerable part. So, guys, I don't want to waste much of your time. Thank you very much for showing up. Let's keep up the momentum. I don't know if Mr. Shams is still in the house. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good day. Mr. Shams, are you there?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, my people. Can you hear me?